Live from Boston, Massachusetts, it's theCUBE, covering IBM Chief Data Officer Summit. Brought to you by IBM.
Welcome back to theCUBE's live coverage of IBM Chief Data Strategy Summit. My name is Rebecca Knight and I'm here with my co-host Dave Vellante. We are joined by Christopher Penn, the VP of Marketing Technology at Shift Communications here in Boston.
Yes.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to talk about cognitive marketing. Tell our viewers what is cognitive marketing and what your approach to it is.
Sure, so cognitive marketing essentially is applying machine learning and artificial intelligence strategies, tactics, and technologies to the discipline of marketing. For a really long time, marketing has been kind of known as the arts and crafts department, and which was fine. And there's certainly, creativity is an essential part of the discipline. That's never going away. But we have been tasked with proving our value. What's the ROI of things is a common question. Where's the data live? The chief data officer would be asking, like, who's responsible for this? And if we don't have good answers to those things, we kind of get shown the door.
Well, it sort of gets back to that old adage in advertising. I know half of my marketing budget is wasted. I just don't know which half.
Exactly. So
now we're really able to know which half is working.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the more interesting things that I've been working on recently is using what's called Markov chains, which is a type of very primitive machine learning to do attribution analysis, to say what actually caused someone to become a new viewer of theCUBE, for example. And you would take all this data that you have from your analytics. Most of it that we have, we don't really do anything with. Well, you might pull like your Google Analytics console and go, okay, I got more visitors today than yesterday, but you don't really get a lot of insights from the stock software. But using a lot of tools, many of which are open source and free of financial cost, if you have technical skills, you can get much deeper insights into your marketing.
So I wonder, just if we can, for our audience, when we talk about machine learning and deep learning and AI, we're talking about math, right? Largely?
Well, so let's actually go through this, because this is important. AI is a bucket category. It means teaching a machine to behave as though it had human intelligence. So if your viewers can see me and disambiguate me from the background, they're using vision, right? If you're hearing sounds coming out of my mouth and interpret them into words, that's natural language processing. Humans do this naturally. It is now trying to teach machines to do these things, and we've been trying to do this for centuries in a lot of ways, right? You have remember the old mechanical Turks and stuff like that. Machine learning is based on algorithms, and it is mostly math, and there's two broad categories, supervised and unsupervised. Mm-hmm. Supervised is you put a bunch of blocks on the table, kids' blocks, and you hold a red one, and it shows the machine over and over again. This is red, and eventually you train it, that's red. Unsupervised is...
Not a hot dog.
This is an apple, not a banana, sorry CNN.
Silicon Valley fans.
Unsupervised is, there's a whole bunch of blocks on the table. Let the machine make as many different sequences as possible. Some are big, some are small, some are red, some are blue, and so on and so forth. You can sort, and then you figure out what's in there, and that's what a lot of what we do. So if you were to take, for example, all of the comments on every episode of theCUBE, I think that's a lot, right? You know humans going to be able to get through that, but you can take a machine and digest through it and just say what's in the bag. And then there's another category beyond machine learning called deep learning, and that's where you hear a lot of talk today. Deep learning, if you think of machine learning as a pancake, deep learning is like a stack of pancakes where the data gets passed from one layer to the next until what you get at the bottom is a much better, more tuned out answer than any human can deliver, because it's like having 100 humans all at once coming up with the answer.
So when you hear about like rich neural networks and deep neural networks,
yep,
that's what we're talking about.
Exactly, right? Generative adversarial networks, all those things are, and kind of a lot of the neural network stuff is deep learning. It's tying all these pieces together so that in concert, they're greater than the sum of any one.
And the math, I presume, is not new math, right?
No.
SVM, and you hear stuff that's been around forever. It's just the application of that math. And why now? Because there's so much data, because there's so much processing power? What are the factors that enable this?
The main factor is cloud, which there's a great shirt that says, there is no cloud, it's just somebody else's computer. Well, it's absolutely true. It's all somebody else's computer, but because of the scale of this, all these tech companies have massive server farms that are kind of just waiting for something to do, and so they offer this as a service. So now you have computational power that is significantly greater than we've ever had in human history. You have the internet, which is a major contributor, the ability to connect machines and people. And you have all these devices. I mean, this little laptop right here would have been a supercomputer 20 years ago, right? And the fact that you can go to a service like GitHub or Stack Exchange, whatever, and copy and paste some code that someone else has written that's open source, you can run machine learning stuff right on this machine and get some incredible answers. So that's why now, because you've got this confluence of networks and cloud and technology and processing power that we've never had before.
Well, with this emphasis on math and science in marketing, how does this change the composition of the marketing department at companies around the world?
So that's a really interesting question, because it means very different skill sets for people. And a lot of people like to say, well, there's the left brain and then there's the right brain. The right brain's the creatives, the left brain's are the quants and stuff like that. And you can't really do that anymore. You actually have to be both brained. You have to be just as creative as you've always been, but now you have to at least have an understanding of the technology and what to do with it. You may not necessarily have to write code, but you better know how to think like a coder and say, how can I approach this problem systematically? Is there it's kind of a popular culture joke, is there an app for that, right? Well, think about that with every business problem you face. Is there an app for that? Is there an algorithm for that? Can I automate this? And once you go down that path of thinking, you are on the path towards being a true marketing technologist.
Can you talk about earned, paid, and owned media, how those lines are blurring or not, and the relationship between sort of those different forms of media and results and PR or advertising?
Yeah, there is no difference. Media is media, because you can take a piece of content that, this media, this interview that we're doing here on theCUBE is technically earned media. If I go and embed this on my website, well then, is that owned media? Well, it's still the same thing. And if I run some ads to it, is it technically now paid media? No, it's the thing. It's content that has value. And then what we do with it, how we distribute it, is up to us and who our audience is. One of the things that a lot of veteran marketing and PR practitioners have to overcome is this idea that, well, the PR folks sit over there and they just, smile and dial and get hits. Go get another hit. And then the ad folks are over here. No, it's all the same thing. And if we don't, as an industry, realize that those silos are artificially imposed, basically to keep people in their own in certain jobs, we will eventually end up turning over all of it to the machines, because the machines will be able to cross those organizational barriers much faster. You have the data, and whatever the data says, that's what you do. So if the data says this channel is going to be more effective, yes, it's a CUBE interview, but actually it's better off as a paid YouTube video. So the machine will just go do that for us.
I want to go back to something you were talking about at the very beginning of the conversation, which is really companies understanding how their marketing campaigns and approaches are effectively working or not working. So without naming names of clients, can you talk about some specific examples of what you've seen and how it's really changed the way companies are reaching customers?
The number one thing that does not work is for any business executive to have a preconceived idea of the way things should be, right? Well, we're the industry leader in this, we should have all the market share. Well, no, the world doesn't work like that anymore. This lovely device that we all carry around in our pockets is literally a slot machine for your attention, right? And so I
like it. You got to copyright that. A slot machine for your attention.
And there's 1.5 million different options, because that's how many apps there are on the App Store. There's 1.5 million different options that are more exciting than your white paper, right? So. For companies that are successful, they realize this. They realize that they can't boil the ocean, that you are competing every single day with the Pope, the President, with Netflix, with all these things. So it's understanding, when is my audience interested in something? Then what are they interested in? And then how do I reach those people? There was a story on the news relatively recently. Facebook is saying, brand pages, we're not going to show your stuff in the regular news feed anymore. There'll be a special feed over here that no one will ever look at unless you pay up and stuff. So understanding that if we don't understand our audiences and recruit these influencers and these people who have the ability to reach these crowds, our ability to do so through the free social media continues to dwindle, and that's a major change.
So the smart companies get this.
Yes.
Where are we, though, in terms of the journey?
We're in still very early days. I was at a major Fortune 50 not too long ago who just installed Google Analytics on their website. And this is a company that, if I name the name, you would know it immediately. They make billions of dollars.
It would embarrass them.
They make billions of dollars, and it's like, yeah, we're just figuring out this whole internet thing. And I'm like, cool, we'd be happy to help you. But why? What took so long? And it's a lot of organizational inertia. Like, well, this is the way we've always done it, and it's gotten us this far. But what they don't realize is the incredible amount of danger they're in, because their more agile competitors are going to eat them for lunch.
You're talking about organizational inertia, and this is a very big problem. We're here at a CDO summit to share best practices and what to learn from each other. What's your advice if you, for a viewer there who's part of an organization that isn't working fast enough on this topic?
Update your LinkedIn profile.
Move on. The lost cause.
One of the things that you have to do an honest assessment of is whether the organization you're in is capable of pivoting quickly enough to outrun its competition. And in some cases, you may be that laboratory inside, but if you don't have that executive buy-in, you're going to be stymied. And your nearest competitor that does have that willingness to pivot and bet big on a relatively proven change, like, hey, data's important. Yeah, you may want to look for greener pastures.
Great. Well, Chris, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Rebecca Knight for Dave Vellante. We will have more from theCUBE's coverage of the IBM Chief Data Strategy Officer Summit after this.